This guy I went on a date with locked me out in his balcony at his apartment in DC. Well, I've been on a couple dates with this guy, so we ended up having like a movie night at his place. He was there I was there so he can cook for me. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. He cooks for me and we're like watching a movie while we eat, and then I hear like a move of motion or something coming from the bathroom, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did you hear that? Something literally just like moved, or like a door opened. It felt like someone was already inside the apartment with us. So he gets up and he's like, let me check. So he goes into the bathroom and he comes back and he's like, oh, do you want to go to the balcony? And I'm thinking he said, do you want to go to the bathroom? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm good here. And he was like, no, we're going to go to the balcony. So he goes to the balcony, locks me outside in the freaking balcony. It is cold. He locks me there and he's like, just be here for a few minutes. I'm like, huh? Peeping through the blinds, and like this man is walking around in circles, and like he looks like he's like panicking or something, and I'm like, what is going on? And mind you, I don't have my phone outside with me. I don't have anything on with me but like a t-shirt and some shorts. Like that's all I had with me, and like I'm over here thinking this shit is a joke. I'm over here thinking like this man is about to surprise me or something. He's like, oh, just be out in my balcony in the cold, and then like, you can come back in like 2 minutes. I'm over here thinking he's trying to surprise me. I'm such a dumbass. So then he closes the blinds as he sees it. I'm like trying to peep through, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? So a couple minutes later, like 5 minutes later, after being stuck outside in the cold, he comes outside and he's like, kind of like, I don't know, like this man is like staring into sunset, and I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like, you just locked me outside in your balcony in the cold with no shoes on. What is going on? He's like, oh, it's nothing, and it's nothing. I'm like, no, it is something. Like, your entire demeanor changed the moment I mentioned there was like a crack, or like I heard a motion in your house. And in my mind, I'm like, does someone live here? Does someone else live here? Like, have you been locking them in the bathroom for so long? Like, what is going on? So he didn't want to tell me, and I was like, you know what, like, I'm gonna go, because it's just so weird how like you don't want to tell me or be honest about the situation. I don't know you that well enough for me to be angry at whatever you have going on, but I was like, just be honest. And we got back in like his in like the living room, and I was like, what's going on? He didn't want to tell me, and all of a sudden this guy had like 3 phones, and I was like, what the heck? Was he pimping out girls or something? Like, what was going on? He was like checking his 3 phones and everything. I was like, what is going on? Be honest. And he was like, oh, I can't tell you. And then he was like, oh, like you just came at the wrong time. In my mind, I'm like, either like this guy's having a bad trip or something, or he's like a drug dealer and he has like, his clients come to his house, because he worked for politics. Don't date any guy that works on the Hill or something. Don't date any guy in DC that works on the Hill, first of all. Oh, can I walk you down? I was like, no, I'm good. Like, you can't walk me down to like my Uber or anything. I'm good until you're gonna be honest with me. He was like, this is just a bad day. He was like, I promise I'll tell you. This is for like 15 minutes. This guy's like walking around in circles in his apartment for 15 minutes. I'm like, okay. As I leave, I turn to my left. There's like a girl walking away. I'm like, maybe that's like his ex or something. I don't know. It was so weird. And y'all, I had to stay to figure out what the fuck the plot was. My friends was like, girl, you better stay. We need to figure out why he really did what he did. So he texted me like 2 days later. And I was like, 2 days is enough for you to come up with the perfect lie to tell me. But I was gonna be seated and listen to what he had to say, because we're nosy as fuck. He gave me some like bullshit excuse and saying like it's someone he used to date and they used to live together, and like I don't know, like he didn't know how like she still had access to the apartment and everything. I felt like that was bullshit. And also he's Nigerian, well, Nigerian by penetration. So all you people that swear that I don't date people of color, here you go, another situation. I was like, yeah, that was a lie. But I still kept him around for the plot. And then one other time he lied to me about having like 3 phones. He was like, I don't have 3 phones. I don't have 3 phones. I was like, oh, you have a 3rd phone. And he was like, I don't have a 3rd phone. He was lying to me for like 5 minutes about having a 3rd phone. I was like, yes, you do. And I said, you have like a red iPhone. And he was like trying to make a joke about it. And like, you know, what do I expect from a guy that locked me out in his balcony? Nothing. But yeah, that was kind of the moment where I stopped talking to him. Tell me what you guys think. Do you guys think it was a truth or it was a lie about him locking me out, or like the whole situation because his ex came and like he claimed that she was depressed or something like that? Let me know what you guys think, because after that I kind of just cut him off. And yeah, but don't date guys in DC. This is why I don't date black guys or Nigerian guys, okay? Or Nigerian by penetration. I don't give a fuck. Nigerian anything, I just don't.
This man didn't know my last name, didn't know what company I worked for. He was already, at this point, he was already blocked on everything. Somehow he found the company that I worked for, found my work email, and decided to send me a novel at midnight. And let me tell you how we got to this point. So we agreed on a place to go eat. Okay, cool. We get there. I'm dressed normal, whatever. It was nice weather. He shows up in a whole suit, which I thought it was extremely odd, but nonetheless, I thought he had made reservations. He did not, so there was a huge line for this place. So he's like, okay, let's go to this other place. We end up at this Mexican restaurant. We sit down. We're having a great conversation at first. Then he proceeds to tell me, we end up talking about, you know, like our dating history and all that. And he tells me how on one of his dates, this girl got up and I guess they were having dessert. That's what he said. We were having dessert, and literally I turned to my right and she is gone. He's like, he just started bad mouthing her, and I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, something's missing. Like, that doesn't add up, right? Like, no girl does that. Like, you have to give a girl a reason to just literally fucking run away. Little did I know. So I'm like, okay, whatever. We continue the conversation. I didn't dwell on that topic too much. But yeah, so he insists on telling me and making like racist jokes, talking about like Nazi this and like Jewish people this and like all this shit that he like did to other dates that he thought was funny, but they didn't take it as such. And at this point, I'm already uncomfortable. So he's like, oh, you know, it looks like you're taking it well. And at that point, I'm like, oh God, like I hope he doesn't fucking kill me. So I'm just like literally just waiting for like us to finish eating. And then the date gets there. I'm like, okay, you know, I have to walk back to my car. Thank you for everything. He's like, no, like, let me walk with you. He's like, I'm actually heading the same way because I had parked my car a few blocks away. And I'm like, okay. So we're walking together and he's like, hey, by the way, can you drop me off of my house? And I'm like, where do you live? And he goes, I live in the Gold Coast. And if you're not from Chicago, that's one of like the neighborhoods in downtown. So it's a really nice area. It's an expensive area. And in my brain, I'm like, there's no fucking way. I'm not gonna get in the car. I'm not gonna be in the same car as this man that I don't even fucking know. I already felt uncomfortable as it is. So we're walking and we see a movie theater. He's like, hey, he's like, I really have to use the restroom. He's like, should we just go into this theater? And I'm like, okay, great. So we get in there and I'm using the restroom. And I guess I didn't let him know or something. He proceeds to blow me up. I'm talking like 10 calls in a matter of like me using the restroom for like 5 minutes. And he starts like texting me and all this shit and like alarming stuff. And I was like, oh, no. I'm like, nope. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I think that it's best if you just find your own way back. So he proceeds to still blow me up. And at this point, like the way that the restrooms were in the theater, it's like if I were to get out and he was gonna get out, like we would have seen each other. And I'm just there waiting and I'm just like, oh my God, like this, like I really thought that this man was gonna pull up to the women's restroom. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I timed it right. I get out of the restroom and I go inside where one of the movies is playing. And I'm just like sitting there like this, like all slouched. Because at this point, like everything that this man had told me by that point, I'm like, he's going to fucking find me. So he's still calling me and I'm just like so I only texted him that one time saying, hey, like, it's best if, you know, you just find like your own ride. So whatever, at this point, like, I'm already alarmed. So I'm like, oh my God, like, there's only one exit. So I finally see an employee, and he's like, hey, like, is everything okay? And I'm like, no. Like, I kind of tell him what's going on, and I'm like, hey, like, this is what he looks like. Is he still out there? And he's like, yeah, he's still out there. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, hey, there's an employee entrance and exit. He's like, if you want, I can walk with you, I can take you down that path. And I'm like, oh my God, you're such a saint, thank you so much. So he walks me out the back, and I assumed that this guy was going to be in front of like the movie theater, and where my car was parked, it was like you could see the theater. And I'm like, this man is going to fucking see me, and then I am so fucked. So the employee, he was so sweet. He's like, I'm gonna walk you. He's like, don't worry. He's like, I'll look around. He's like, let's just go straight for your car. I get in my car, and my car is like super fucking obvious because it has a bumper sticker that says real estate. And this guy, the employee, he's just like watching and looking out for me. And I get in my car, and I'm like, can you just please like just watch me drive off? Because at this point, I thought that this man was capable of anything and everything. So, and what that email said was creepy as shit. This man was talking about what could have been, our future together, all this stuff. Oh, you're amazing. This is what we're capable of. And I just like blacked out. So I had to block him on that too, which I've never done. But these dating horror stories are no joke, especially for women. So yeah, there's a few more, not as bad, thankfully. But yeah, it's tough out here for a girl.
So y'all know that this is an open forum. Unless I'm speaking about something where I'm not really looking for other people's opinion and I'm speaking my truth. But today is the day that we talk about dating horror stories. So I want y'all to chime in, and I want y'all to share y'all dating horror stories. Like, I want to hear it. Okay? So I'm going to go first. Okay? You ready? Okay, so boom. This was a day after having talked on the phone for maybe about a week, maybe a little bit more. And, and he invited me to go eat lunch somewhere. So, I obliged. Nice guy. He had a nice career, had some nice things going for himself or whatever. Well, the kicker is, so mid-date, 2 drinks in, he asked me to go to his house. Okay. No. So he was like, okay, I said, well, it seems like you're feeling some type of way because I told you no. Oh, no, I'm good. No, I understand, whatever. So he excuses himself and he goes to the bathroom, right? So he comes back to the table as if nothing happened. But I'm going to go ahead and fast forward and tell you what happened in that time frame, right? So in this time frame, this young man decides to go outside and flatten his own tires. Yeah, he flattened his own tires. And then when we were both leaving out, because y'all know I'm a horrible storyteller. Like, my story don't never be in chronological order. But when we leave out the restaurant or whatever, then he scratching his head and looking at the tires on the car because we were parked not too far from each other. Didn't know it at the time, but we were. So he's scratching his head and, oh my gosh, somebody flattened my tires and I don't know, such and such and such. I was like, oh, okay, bet. Well, I'll wait here until you get your stuff together, whatever, call whoever you gonna call or get an Uber. And he was like, no, I don't have time to do all of that because I have an appointment, an appointment at the house that I have to be there for. He was like, so, I live 10 minutes up the road. Can you just can you just take me home? And I was like, no. Cause no. So by this time, there is a couple of people, there's like, that work in the restaurant, that are coming outside of the restaurant. It's a female and 2 males, and they're rushing out the restaurant, and they're like flagging me down. I'm just standing there talking to them or whatever, but they flagging me down, and they was like, come here. So I was like, what's up? The woman was like, I was praying that I could catch you before you left. She said, we just played back the video of the outside of the restaurant, and the whoever the manager was looking at the cameras for some reason, and we saw this man poach his tires and then come back in here and come back on a date with you, and we saw y'all here talking, so I knew something wasn't right. And I said, yeah, he told me that he told me he had that somebody else flattened his tires. She said, so at this point, I'm standing far enough away from him, but close enough to him where he could hear the conversation. So I look over at him like, why would you do that? What did you do that for? Like, I'm literally looking at him like, what the fuck? What made you think that you was gonna get away with that? Like, why would you do that? Right? This man looked me square in my eyes and said, I bought you a drink. I paid for your food. And I even gave you money for gas for coming here. So you were coming to my house one way or another.